Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Esoteric, in a long-running series, the Unported Playlist, where I take a look at my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And while I understand Haunted Castle has been ported to home consoles, this is Janktoberfest 2, Bad Game Boogaloo, which means we can talk about it. And when I say Haunted Castle is absolutely janky, I mean it's a capital J with an A-N-K after it. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, down below hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. It takes a lot of effort to play a game like this, and you will see I have already died. Haunted Castle is an impossibly difficult game, not because you need to learn what it's asking of you, because the enemy patterns and layouts are just absolutely cheap. Now there are 3 different ROM revisions of this, and I am playing the hardest one just to show it off to you guys, but everything in this game just wants you to die immediately, and you only get a limited amount of continues, or in some instances, depending on settings, you can't continue whatsoever. You will see I've already died twice, and I'm not even out of the first stage yet, so we are going straight to cheats to give myself invulnerability. It's the only way I could show you the end of this game without practicing for months. This is just a letdown from start to finish, but it's not without its charm, and I understand for some people they absolutely love this game. I'm not here to convince you that it's not your favorite game at all. That's not what Janktoberfest is all about. It's talking about design decisions and games that for one reason or another just do not seem like they're well put together or well thought out, and Haunted Castle 100% covers that. And Simon Belmont's walking animation. Have you ever seen an egg salad sandwich in a vending machine and wondered what would happen if I ate that? Would I be able to make it home? He walks like that reality. I don't know why, but it definitely seems like he's in desperate need of a bathroom. But you'll see here, the game's either throwing absolutely everything in the kitchen sink at you, or giving you basically free hits. Those men coming out of the trees there, if you just stand in front of them out of arm's reach, it is free. And then you get into an area like this, and there are technically places you can stand and not take a hit. If you just crouch down here and continually whip, you'll hit basically every bat coming towards you, until the game just fails to register a hit. The whip went through the bat, but it did not actually hit it. That's the other janky part of this game, is you can do the same thing twice and basically seem to get completely different results. And that can just be absolutely infuriating, because when you're doing the same thing in a video game, you expect the same results. So when 2 different things happen, it is just maddening, and it drives me absolutely insane. But moving on to the second level here, one that's going to take a lot of time to see, all of a sudden now the skeletons have suicide bullets coming out of them. There are ghosts in them, and they come out at such a rate with your whip that it's basically impossible to do enough damage to defeat them. And that's where the jank in this game really comes in. You are so underpowered versus the opponents you are facing, and there's situations in which you do not even have enough time to actually strike them enough to kill them before they are right on top of you. Retreating does not help either. The balance in this game, the M Revision ROM, is just absolutely off the charts. It has got to be the hardest arcade game I have ever played, and it's 100% designed just to steal your lunch money. It's going to take you in a back alley, kick you in the crotch, mug you for your wallet, and then leave you some change just to have some bus fare home. I mean it when I say this game is just going to kill you time and time again, and without cheating and that limited continue system, stuff like this happens. I make a jump, I hit the wall, I don't get up on top of it. I make the same jump, hit the same wall, and I end up on top of it as well. Now I'm sure there was a pixel or 2 there that I was higher on the second one, but that basically looks the same and ends up leaving a bad taste in your mouth. I will say graphically, for its time and era in 1998, the sprites are quite large and some of them can be relatively attractive, so I can't knock the game completely on the visuals, even though the stairs can sometimes be impossible to get up onto. But when we get to the top of this staircase, now we're fighting mudmen, brown background, brown floor, brown enemy, they blend in. You hit them twice and they advance forward in their mud form, and even if I retreat back and try to give myself some space, they move even quicker, and I cannot whip them fast enough. Even if I use a sub-weapon, 10 out of 10 times they just seem to be damaging me. Well, I will give them a little credit for the parallax scrolling here in the blood red sky. This is a decent look all around, even if it's not the prettiest game. And sometimes the sprite work can be relatively good, as well as how it kind of moves around the screen. When we get into this boss here, you're going to see it comes in and it does rotate around. It is a pretty look for 88. So on the hardware side, they definitely did what they could with the game, but it seems like on the actual gameplay side, they 100% struggled to translate Castlevania to an arcade existence. Outside of the fact that the soundtrack is spectacular, I love it. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds and I'll be right back. I mean, the soundtrack of this game is one department in which I 100% cannot complain about it, and any Castlevania fan is going to enjoy the soundtrack here. But again, as we're in the castle, this kind of reddish brown gold color scheme makes me think of an old 1980 Washington Redskins jersey, so maybe somebody was a fan, but at least we do get some bloody tears coming out of a painting. That is a nice little flair there. And here's the weirdest thing, this always gets me. This table here starts to float like a poltergeist, and a chicken leg comes out at you and attacks you. Now this is Castlevania. Chicken legs are your friends. Yes, they come in walls, and they give you more health. Here the chicken legs just want to kill you, and that is against the Castlevania canon. Chicken, friendly, everything else, an enemy. All jokes aside, it is kind of strange and reminds me a lot of Splatterhouse when you get into the boss of the second level. And of course it's Castlevania and there are flea men, but I will say outside of taking a little bit too much damage, their jumping patterns aren't really that unfair. But the balance in this game is all across the board. We're going to see the next boss here on stage 3, and outside of taking that one hit, he basically has no hit points whatsoever. Knocking some of the bats out of the air in Haunted Castle can be harder than some of the bosses, and one of the easiest bosses in the game is going to be Dracula himself, and even if they call this Haunted Castle, any Castlevania game should have the hardest boss fight be Dracula at the end. But as we move further into Dracula's castle, we still get this brown colorway that just looks like absolute mud, and apparently Dracula has an HVAC system because there are grates on the wall, but the installers could not get those things installed square because they're absolutely ridiculous looking. And sometimes the game just has shines of being decent, though. This one area here, couple flea men running around, not a whole lot else going on. The game's not trying to completely kill me or drop me into a pit, and you can say to yourself, I can see where they were going with this. Obviously Castlevania was quite popular and Konami wanted to get something into arcades, and some of the bosses with the sprites are impressive for 88. Now I think these are supposed to be rock fists, but they definitely just look like a monkey flinging poop at the player. But you'll see here as this golem comes in, it does look good, although I don't understand if they couldn't get enough colors on screen at once, why they basically made him blend into the background so badly. It just would look better if the background was a different color so his sprite would pop. They spent all this time creating this gigantic sprite, something you didn't see very often in 1988, and then they went ahead and basically made it the exact same color as the background, ruining everything. And he doesn't even have a death animation. The screen just freezes and we go on. And one of the biggest enemies in any Castlevania game, they love doing this, is just an elevator with platforms above it. Not sure why they installed an elevator this way and why they would have rocks above it to get hit, but that's just how Dracula's interior designers roll. One more soundtrack taste though, just as good as the last, and I'll be right back. I mean, genuinely, you cannot say anything bad about the soundtrack in Haunted Castle, and that's the one area in which I'm just going to give this one a straight 10 out of 10, and the soundtrack does not belong on Janktoberfest whatsoever. But even the Frankenstein fight here could have been more interesting, but all he does is pound the wall as bricks fall down from the sky, but at least he got a death animation of the flesh rotting off of his skeleton. And this bridge to Dracula's castle might be the longest in Castlevania history, even if they call it Haunted Castle, and you're going to see me just take damage boosts from a ton of bats. If you were to stop and hit every single bat on this bridge, 9 times out of 10 you're going to slow yourself down enough to just fall off the bridge and take a death. It is so tight. I've only ever done it once with real health, and that's just because I stage skipped to try to see if I could do it. I've never actually seen the ending of this game without cheating, and I don't think I'm ever going to spend the time to try to, but leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think of this game, because I really would be curious. Oh, we're finally into Dracula's Keep. We're finally here. We finally get the battle with Big D himself, pun very much intended, and it still makes you just walk and walk and walk until we finally get to Dracula's inner chamber. And he definitely has 2 different forms, and both of them are absolutely hilarious and not very hard whatsoever. But strangely, his first form is the harder of the 2, and if you look at his face, if that's not just Burt Reynolds, I don't know who it is. And that's the thing. I think both Dracula's both forms are modeled after different actors. He jumps around, he goes to bat form, the classic things that you would expect Dracula to do, and you will take some hits here, but once he goes to his next form, it takes like 2 hits and he is dead. Depending on what side of the screen you kill him on is what side of the screen his gigantic head is going to come out as, and that is definitely just Ted Danson from Cheers. I think someone who loved Cheers went for it, blast a few crosses off, and Dracula kind of just slightly melts into the floor, and you get the quickest credit roll sequence ever. Dracula's castle goes into the water, you've saved his bride, and the game rewards you after having all of this effort to do the following. You just get to play it again. Once is enough for me. This is the end of Janktoberfest. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave me a comment down below, and I am done. Bye-bye.